In this lesson, we're going to be looking a little bit more in depth at finding probability. Remember, the probability is a measure of the likelihood that a specific event will occur. Probabilities have a value between 0 and 1. An event that is impossible has a probability of 0. An event that is certain to occur has a probability of 1. And then there's a range of probability values between 0 and 1 that we're going to be looking at in this lesson. To find the probability when all outcomes are equally likely, the probability of an event, which we write P parentheses and the particular event, is the ratio of the numbers of favorable outcomes to the total number of outcomes. So we write that as the probability of an event is the number of favorable outcomes over the number of total outcomes. And we can use this ratio to come up with our value for the probability. So let's look at some examples and find the values of that probability. And when we find those values, we're going to be writing those as fractions, decimals, and percents. And when we write it as a fraction, we need to remember to write it in simplest form. So our first example we're going to look at is the spinner. The spinner below is spun once. First, we want to know the probability of spinning an odd number. So taking a look at the spinner, our odd numbers are 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So there are 5 possibilities out of a total of 10 sections. So if we were to count all of our sections, and they're kind of already numbered for us, we have 10 total sections. And 5 of those are odd numbers. That is our probability written as a fraction. We want it in simplest form. This can simplify to 1/2. So the probability of spinning an odd number is 1/2. Or if we were to write that as a decimal, 1/2 as a decimal is 0.5. Or as a percent, 50%. So we want to be able to write our probability all 3 ways. Next, we want to know the probability of spinning a number that is a multiple of 4. So our multiples of 4 are 4 and 8. So there are 2 out of our 10 sections that are multiples of 4. So 2 over 10. Again, this is how we write it as a fraction, but we want it in simplest form. 2 over 10 will simplify to 1/5. So the probability of spinning a multiple of 4 is 1/5. Or if we were to write that as a decimal, so to remember to write it as a decimal, we divide our numerator divided by our denominator. And we can use a calculator for that. 1 divided by 5 is 0.2. Or as a percent, so remember to go from a decimal to a percent, you simply move your decimal point 2 places to the right, which would give us 20%. So the probability of spinning and landing on a number that's a multiple of 4 is 1/5, 0.2, or 20%. Go ahead and highlight C and D. And let's take a look at number 2. Number 2, we're taking a look at the word acceleration. and we're choosing letters at random from this word. First, we want to know the probability of choosing the letter R. When I take a look at the word acceleration and I count how many letters are in the word acceleration, there are 12 total letters. There's one R, so the probability of picking an R is 1 out of 12. This ratio is already in simplest form, so we can change it to a decimal by dividing 1 divided by 12. And again, using a calculator, that gives us 0.083 repeated. Remember, we talked about the repeating sign. We draw the line above the number that's repeating. And then as a percent, we're going to move our decimal 2 places to the right. So as a percent, it would be 8.3 repeated percent. Next, we want to know the probability of choosing the letter C. In the word acceleration, it still has a total of 12, and there are 2 C's in the word acceleration. 2 twelfths can simplify to 1/6. 1/6, if we use a calculator to change it to a decimal, is 0.16 repeated. And then to change that as a percent is 16.6 repeated percent. Go ahead and highlight C and D, and then highlight number 3, 4, 5, and 6.